Aye.
Council Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion passes 601.
Thank you. And there it is. The next item is the June 6th meeting minutes, and I'd accept a motion to approve those.
I'll move to approve the June 6, 2022 Town Council meeting minutes.
I'll second.
It's a toss-up.
Go. All right.
Any changes, clarifications? Seeing none, if you could call the roll.
Council Breda?
Aye.
Council Wamatina?
Aye.
Council White?
Abstain.
Council Blackstone?
Aye.
Council Ward?
Aye.
Council Connolly?
Aye.
Council Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion passes 601.
The next would be the town manager's report.
Okay, so if you've all got a copy of the report, it's fairly dense, so I was thinking that rather than read the whole thing and put you to sleep, if there are any questions, please direct them to me, and I will make sure that the town manager gets those questions and you get the answers that you need, if there are any.
Are there any questions or comments on the town manager's report? Councilor Blackstone?
Yeah, I would just, I don't fully understand why we're redoing a Garanzano property. I know that LCHIP has changed some things. I know in the Conservation Commission, they have to redo certain things with LCHIP. I was just wondering what that was. Why we have to redo it.
I didn't think that we had to redo it necessarily, as it was an issue with the structure. I think it says in that they learned that from LCHIP that the Attorney General's office has determined LCHIP does not have the authority to hold the conservation restrictions. So I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
But it's not. So you're looking for more clarification on why that is?
Well, is that I know that there was recently a law that LCHIP doesn't have that ability anymore. And so what we're doing is we're recertifying in the new restrictions then? Is that it?
I think that's probably a better question for the town manager, but I guess that's not the way I read it. The way I read it is that again in the last paragraph of that explanation that the town manager provided, and I'll just read it now. With LCHIP not being able to hold the easement and the Conservation Commission now willing to hold the easement, legal counsel and I believe that the Conservation Commission voting in the affirmative, and that he can sign the new documents without the town council.
Yeah.
But that didn't.
I guess I wanted to understand a little more because the Conservation Commission reported at the Planning Board last night that under the current LCHIP things that you had to walk the boundary lines like every year, and now they can't do that anymore. That's a part of the new thing, and the town council has to walk the boundary lines every year.
The council or the Conservation Commission?
No, the town council.
The Conservation Commission walks the boundaries.
That's not what Goldblatt reported. So I don't know.
So we need more information, for sure. Any other questions or comments on the town manager's report?
Yeah, and Bill can maybe answer this. Can you talk a little bit about the community development grant for $26,000? What is that? $21,562. Do you There was just a mention at the very end of the things, stuff that he's not reporting on.
Oh, you would ask that question.
I'm sorry, I was
Particularly
gonna send you a
since
note
I believe
earlier.
I just signed off on this too, and it was, I'm trying to remember what it was for.
I'm
It was
assuming that CDBG is the Community Development.
Block grant.
Block grant.
Is what that stands
Okay.
for, and it was for the Housing Authority. And I thought this was for piping work. And we just signed off on this, at the end of last week, if I recall.
So it's an expenditure.
It is an expenditure, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
I will say that this new feature of, because this is new, that we've seen this, the contract signed on behalf of the town since last meeting, I like seeing that. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
noticed that as well, I agree.
Mhm.
And so this would be also the time to comment on any of the monthly department reports, if anybody had comments or questions or needed clarification on items.
I have something.
Yeah,
I mean,
please.
if Sean's here, so. Actually, it's Public Works. But so between fuel and road salt, you're $100,000 over budget already. How, have they got the ability to make up for that? Or is this gonna be in?
So I will just say that typically when we have questions on the department reports, I mean, Sean happens to be here, but those are usually directed to the town manager, so I don't wanna put you on the spot unless
And
you are
I'm
prepared
going
to.
to defer to the town manager and to the public works director. I'm just the acting public works director, so it's a little difficult for me to dive into those kind of numbers.
Okay.
But I will pass that along, or
Well, I'm sure it's
Bill will pass it along, and
Bill's
we'll make sure you get an answer.
aware of it, and
I am aware of it. And, I mean, we've been
Are the
aware of
cost
this
of
for a
things
while.
going up?
Well,
What?
what? Yes, the cost of things have gone up, and.
But my dollar
but
stresses
but
so
we've
far.
actually, I thought the council actually knew that we were, well on our way to overspending the salt budget right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but when you add it up,
Really.
it's $100,000.
Yep.
Just at this point, and I'm sure it's gonna go up a little bit more between now and July. But,
I mean.
do they have enough room to make up $100,000?
It shouldn't go up for salt, because we're done using salt at this point, to my knowledge, unless there's some surprise that's out there. And so, but yes, salt prices went up, and it had everything to do with supply chains.
Mhm.
So,
But again, my question is, 100,000. You know, if it's 10,000, 5,000, you can make that up easy. 100,000 is not as easy to make up.
I'm not gonna say that it is easy to make up, and certainly it's causing us pain. It's similar to the way that energy costs are gonna cause us pain in the coming year.
Mhm.
What we're doing is just making sure that we're looking for ways to mitigate this over the next 12 months, and going to be vigilant about how we're spending as we go through the year, not just into the year. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting year, no doubt about it. I will say that it shouldn't be a surprise.
Mhm.
And
Oh, yes.
so that, this information is provided every month. And I'll apologize for the information about our expenditures not being or revenues being in the report for this month, because we had somebody be out, and there were things that were undone, so the information wouldn't have been accurate, and I'd rather wait and put out accurate information when we're capable of doing so. So it'll be late, but you will get it. But anyway, yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, and I believe that Steve would say this, that it's a bottom line budget, and so your real concern is where do you end up at the end of the day in terms of your total general fund expenditures. And so, we're gonna be okay. And I say that only because, we're not finished the year yet. So, anything could happen. However, the projections look like we're just fine.
Okay.
And we're tracking pretty well with what we were doing last year, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilor Brayback.
I wanted to, is it okay for me to make multiple comments, or should I
Oh,
make
yes.
one?
No.
First of all, I wanted to thank all the department heads for writing these very narrative reports. Definitely made more sense for my brain to digest in this way, and I just really, really appreciate. I could tell a lot of time went into it, so I just wanted everyone to know that I appreciate that time, that it was not wasted. There's so many great things going on, and two things that have me really concerned are the struggle the rec center is having to find camp counselors. I know that camp is a obviously very important enrichment opportunity for children in our town, but also really important childcare for working parents. So that I don't have any solutions. I'm just going to name things that I'm concerned about. That's something I'm concerned about. I was also really concerned in reading the welfare report about the folks struggling with homelessness, and I know that rent is a real issue, not only in Newmarket, but in our nation right now. And so it has me really concerned to see kind of what can happen when folks have an inability to have affordable housing in our town. So I just think I'm identifying those as issues we're facing.
Thank you. Councilor Blackstone.
I would just like to thank the police department for their bravery, and some of these activities are pretty, I didn't expect to see this kind of thing in Newmarket, but I wanted to thank them for protecting us in this way. And then in addition to that, I really like this idea that they're having patrols now downtown later at night. I think that you know, we are kind of a late night town, and you know, I think having a presence there just makes everyone feel a little better, or at least all the people that I care about being there would feel a little better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Conley.
I just want to echo Councilor Brayback's concerns about, you know, some of the financial issues that that members of the community are facing, and just kind of urge us to continue kind of forward thinking about what kinds of things we might be able to do to support people. On just a very tiny little nice note, I also wanted to congratulate Aaron Hurlbert, who had completed his field training. It was nice to see that in the department report, and has been cleared for solo assignment. So congratulations, Mr. Hurlbert, and congratulations to Matt. I'm gonna screw up your last name, and I apologize. Piffine, who just graduated from the New Hampshire Police Academy on the 27th. So congratulations, guys.
And I'm not seeing any other comments. I just had a question, if you could relay to the town manager. One of the, at a recent meeting, I can't remember exactly when it was, but Chief Jordan had mentioned that he was in the process of working with, you know, the regional sort of police departments on like a mental health task force. I'm not sure if that's the correct terminology. I was just curious if, I mean, I don't think it's something that was going to happen overnight. I'm just curious if he's made any progress in that area.
Okay.
And again, like that comes from some of these reports that we've gotten from the police department that are concerning. So,
I will make sure that gets passed on.
thank you. And I didn't have any other, although I do have to say that the community policing the cards might be one of the like sweetest things I've seen. And my kids, so one of my my oldest is, you know, he's on Facebook, so he saw some of the posts about the trading cards, and is a little jealous, and feels like maybe he's a little too old, which he is. But he's like, I get a gift certificate to Aroma Joe's. So he's thinking about going down to the police station and seeing if he can get some cards. So I think that's just a really wonderful initiative. And seeing no other comments, we will move on to committee reports. Are there any committee reports?
I got a couple.
Well, please.
All right, this is going to be a little long-winded, so I got some notes here. So the Riverfront Advisory Committee met last week. We had a call with representatives from the Lamprey River Advisory Committee who made us aware of a large grant to clean up Great Bay. Whereas Newmarket, Lamprey River is a significant contributor to Great Bay, we're poised for potentially getting some of that grant money. Bob McDonald and the committee are going to, continue to look into this, to that. There was discussion about the overall Shander Park. I don't know if everybody's aware of all the parts of Shander Park update. There's the bridge going over to Heron Point. There's upgrades to the existing walkway part. There's updates to the dock launching part. There's the Moonlight Brook that has to be cleaned up there, and potential expansion of the walkway down towards the water treatment plant. So consensus is that that's a lot of stuff that's going to take a long time to address, and so we're going to try to break it down into smaller chunks and address smaller chunks at a time. I received an invitation from the New Hampshire Coastal Adaptation Work Group, and I passed that along to the town council. I just got that flyer. If anybody's interested, it's next Wednesday, June 22nd from 1 to 4, and at the bottom of the flyer is some contact information there. Lastly, I want to give some recognition to our new planning director, Bob McDonald. I'm surprised, this is my second meeting with this group, and I'm surprised to hear there's a lot of different players in this thing. There's like 8 of them that I'm aware of at this point, and Bart's already off there making connections and with people. I think Bart's going to become a really significant person, a resource for the town with all these different groups. Next is the Energy and Environment Committee. So that's going to be a hot topic, I guess. We met with a representative from the Community Power Coalition. The Community Power Coalition is a fairly new entity that's coordinating 19 participating cities and towns and municipalities. Their goal is to get renewable energy, clean renewable energy, and make that available to the cities and towns, and make it available to their citizens, and they become the default provider of energy that has to be competitive with current sources, Eversource and whatever. We went over where CPC currently stands. They have an executive staff in place now, and they've submitted an RFP to get a group to do to manage their procurement process for renewable energy. Okay. We also talked about the next steps for Newmarket, and the next step for Newmarket is to actually start working, developing a energy plan. The CPC provided a template. It's 50+ pages. So we have a work session set up already to start working on that development plan. Okay. Lastly, I sent you another flyer, New Hampshire Saves Button-Up Program. Basically, it's a group that will provide a webinar for people on how to save energy in their homes or apartments. It's a free webinar, lasts about an hour and a half. They're funded by the major utilities, Eversource, Unitil, and whatever. So we'd like to know if the town council would like to co-sponsor that webinar. So, any questions? Would the town council be in favor of co-sponsoring that with the Environment Energy Committee?
I'd be in favor of it. Just, yeah. I know I took a look at your flyer. It was like, I really like the part where they focused on the interest on insulation. Like 50% of energy use is goes towards like heating and cooling. So that's just a major source of, but that's something I'd be interested in proposing.
So we're looking for like late September, early October to do that webinar, and would like hopefully Channel 13 to record it, and they can play it a number of times over the upcoming months.
Can I just ask a question? What would co-sponsoring it entail?
Nothing, just we're going to put your name up there that says sponsored by or Newmarket Energy Conservation and Committee and the Newmarket Town Council. So it's a simple.
Is there anyone opposed to that? Can't imagine. We had done one of these 3 years ago, I think, and it was pretty well received. That one was in person, so I think having the opportunity for people to zoom in, from the comfort of their living rooms, is probably really beneficial for attendance. So I think that's great.
Okay, all right, so we will work on that and set that up and shoot for September, October timeframe. Okay, that's all I got on this.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Councilor Blackstone.
The planning board met last night, and the depot down by the golf course, that was a final presentation was made that we approved that pending some details I have to go over with Bart. So he's expecting that it's already, I don't know if you've been down there, he's already doing stuff down there, but they expect that will be completed by I don't know, early next year, something like that. They expect to start construction in November. They're actually moving the depot and building the stuff around it. And then if you walk out of the front door of Town Hall and you turn right and you go over the bridge, immediately on your left is like an old train depot, like right on the tracks, right? So we had a petition to tear that down and to put an 8-unit housing project there, some of which will qualify as what's it called, working class?
Workforce housing.
Workforce housing. Some of it will qualify as workforce housing. That's being done by the same developer who did the Masonic Hall, where Crack Skulls is, right? So he owns that property, and so we basically gave him the go-ahead to do that. And then, as you know, we asked the planning board to look at the detached alternative dwelling units. That project is started, and we're expecting to have a full report in August.
Great. Any other committee reports? Seeing none, we will move on to old business, and we have three resolutions in the second reading, and the first is ordinance number 1, 2021-2022, amending the chapter 1 of the code of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, clarifying the authority of the town manager, and I would accept a motion to approve that ordinance.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 1, 2021-2022, amending chapter 1 of the code of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, clarifying the authority of town manager.
Second.
Thank you. Any, Councilor Bayback?
I guess I'm a little confused about the need for this ordinance. I think I was under the impression, based on our previous, presentations and such, that this was already the way things were. And so I don't know if anyone here can answer this question, but I don't quite understand how this was the day-to-day process if it wasn't already in writing, and where's the need for this coming from, I guess, is my question.
So,
Can you answer that?
I believe I can. So
Okay.
my understanding is that that the council approves policies and policy changes, and so some of these policies, or most of the policies that are being written, are functional operational policies that frankly should be probably handled by the town manager and not really risen to the level of the executive board or the council. And so an example of that is the work at home policy. And some of the other policies that I personally have been rewriting. So, and then they get brought before you, and then and it takes, you know, a first reading, second reading, and so on. And a lot of these just really don't warrant all that attention. And it's not that, you know, you're trying to sneak something by the council. They're just normal things that you would want to deal with. The other thing is we really are supposed to be reviewing all of the policies on an annual basis, and that would probably alleviate that burden to some degree. And that there are certain policies, like I think it's personnel policy and I believe the purchasing policy, which is an ordinance, and those would have to be still looked at by council because they have financial impact or big impact on personnel.
Mhm.
So, but for other policies, they're much more refined and more about day-to-day operations. It's to alleviate the council from having to deal with those kinds of things. That's my understanding.
Mine as well. Did that answer your question, or?
I guess not really, because I maybe I'm just misremembering the past 2 years, but I don't feel like we've seen a lot of those policies come to us. I thought Steve was already doing that without it coming to us, but it has happened and I immediately blacked it out.
I don't believe hardly any policies have come your way. The only policy changes that were made, I rushed a few through as a result of the audit because we realized that we hadn't looked at the investment policy in a few years, and so that was brought to our attention. And then of course we got that up to you. And I'm trying to remember, there was one or two others. I think we had to create another financially related policy. It was, and then, anyway, and each time we were scrambling to get them in on time so that you could review them,
Those I
have them
recall,
read
yeah.
again, and then we could get them on the books. And so, I still got gigged in the audit anyway, but anyhow, we're trying to streamline this process a little bit in a way that makes sense. And, you know, that's really the crux of it.
And I don't think that you are imagining that, because we haven't had a whole lot of policies other than those financial policies.
I do
that-
recall
yeah.
those ones too. Once you said that.
And I don't think that the work from home policy came before the council. I think it was mentioned, but I don't think that it came before the council. And so my understanding is that this would sort of codify that, so that and was just a way to cover
Gotcha.
bases.
I guess I didn't realize it wasn't codified before now, because it's when we become counselors, we get a presentation about how the town manager, you know, is the administrative head of the town. So I assumed that was in writing.
Right.
I did too.
And it is in writing, but I think that this portion sort of clarifies. That was my understanding. Councilor Blackstone.
Would it be possible for us to change the regulation such that we didn't require 2 votes, that we could simply, you could present a policy and we could vote on it that night?
We can always suspend the rules if
I mean, if it's
we
only
felt-
1 or 2 a year, right?
I think that I don't think that's the intent. I could be wrong. I don't think that was the intention for this ordinance change. I think that those items would still come before the council, right? I think that those financial policies would still come before the council.
Correct.
This is more about how the departments are run, not about larger financial policies that would still come before the council. In those situations, if it was an emergency, we could suspend the rules and vote that evening. I know that the town manager tries to not have us do that unless it really is an emergency.
Another example would be IT policies. And I can't remember if you actually had that presented to you or not. It was a while ago. But I think we were reviewing and looking at social media policies possibly be included, which I don't think they're going to be. Totally separate issue.
Any other questions? Seeing none, if you could call the roll.
Counselor Brayback?
Aye.
Counselor Lamatina?
Aye.
Counselor White?
Aye.
Counselor Gladstone?
Aye.
Counselor Ward?
Aye.
Counselor Conley?
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And next, we have Resolution 2021-2022, and that's the water and, number 34, and that's the water and sewer rate increases. And I would accept a motion to approve that resolution.
I'll move to approve resolution, resolution number 34-2122, water and sewer rate increases. It threw me.
Second.
And we have Sean Gregg here to speak to the water and sewer increases, which is probably his least favorite part of his job.
It probably is, and it's hard to believe to look down and see that I've been doing this since 2013 for the wastewater treatment facility. Back in 2013, as it's written, I came in front of the town council because we had a large expenditure coming. We had to build a wastewater treatment facility where the cost was going to be $14.1 million. And at that time, I presented to the town council, we can do a one-time really large rate increase, or we can create a sinking fund and do level increases over years. So by starting and increasing rates back in 2013, we were able to build up our fund balance, and then as the bills came in later on, we could stretch it out so people were not seeing that huge impact all at once. So at that time, the town council directed me to do that, to create a water model, which at that time I sat down and put a water model together and for rates. And over the time, we've been increasing rates for years. We've been coming here every year. We've been able to reel back some of those increases, not as quite as high as I said at the point in time, because we were able to do things at the wastewater treatment plant to curb costs. I am here this year for the wastewater. We have actually received, I applied for state aid grants and other monies. We've increased revenues. So right now, revenues meet expenses. So really that 1354 that I said we need to get to, we are okay right now. And I think it's time that we do not increase rates for sewer. I do not recommend it, especially in this economy, the way people are struggling. I think we're at a good point. However, as I stated in my report, that the state aid grants, which is a large amount of money which we are getting from the state for the for revenues, could end at any time. At that point in time, we would have to go back and start to do those increases. It's in the budget for us to get that money this year, so I expect it. So that's not an issue, but it could happen in the future. I will say that, as everybody knows, because of what's happening right now, prices are going up crazily. Labor costs, energy costs, every cost, because fuel, petroleum products are actually in just about everything we use. It's in the chemicals that I use to actually help do our process. It is what it is. But if we continue to keep the revenues that I'm seeing, we should see small increases, not the large ones we've seen in the past. I will also say that on the wastewater side, we have pump stations and other infrastructure that hasn't been touched for years. I'm looking to address those pieces. We're looking to create plans and address those responsibly so they do not have large impact on the sewer users. So again, on the sewer side, I think even last 2 years I said we need to get to the 1380 We're at 1265, and I'm recommending no increase for the sewer. So, that's the good news. On the water side, however, when we started this, and it's hard to believe that when we signed in August 3 years ago to do all the water projects, which again, I've created a water model again for rates. However, we're in our third increase. I said we needed to do increases of $2 to pay for those debts. We need to go, my recommended increase is what I said in the past, it's 50 cents. It takes us from 6 1/4 to 6.75. I will be back next year for another increase, which would complete that. But however, what I see for increases in, again, labor and all the things that we did not expect, I see some smaller increases to go forward. Those I'm not sure how they'll be, but they will not be any bigger than what we're doing now. I just want to be upfront in what I'm seeing so people know what to expect. Now, on the current rates with the 1265 for sewer, that means for every gallon that I take back that I have to treat, it's less than 2 pennies a gallon for me to take that water back from you and treat it. For me to treat the water, make sure it's good, test it, and for you to open up your faucet and fill up a 1 gallon jug, it's less than a penny a gallon. So it sure beats the store. And you don't have to drive there to get it. So I will also say that the town's water is great water. It meets all the standards. And on the water and sewer department, we are now at capacity so we can meet the next 20 years of needs for the water and sewer once all the water projects are done. Any questions? It's been a long haul for that wastewater.
Well, I think it's terrific, you know, having, I'm sure people would, this time of year would really appreciate not having a rate increase.
We'll do whatever we can.
I'm sure that I speak on behalf of the council when I say that we are very grateful for the work that you do. And I've said this many times, but obviously you're skilled at your job, but you also are very conscientious about making sure that the ratepayers have as little an increase as possible. And so you do that in lots of ways, always looking for grants and always looking for opportunities for other funding. And I know that people appreciate that. So and I certainly do. Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing
No, you
none,
said
if
it.
you,
Nope, you said it.
oh, seeing none, if you would call the roll.
Council Brayback?
Aye.
Council Lamatina?
Aye.
Council White?
Aye.
Council Blackstone?
Aye.
Council Ward?
Aye.
Council Conley?
Aye.
Council Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Resolution 2021-2022-35 to select a vendor to conduct a salary survey and compensation study for the municipal government. And I would accept a motion to approve that resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. I think Counselor Conley seconded it.
No.
Did you have any
Should I go
thing
to
to
podium?
add? No, you don't need to go to the podium.
Yeah, okay, so I believe it's every 3 years we're actually supposed to be doing a salary survey, and so we're on track for that. We may actually be slightly behind, but and what we've decided was that it would be best to have an outside objective organization do this for us rather than internally. And so we got 2 bids, which you've probably seen in your packet. And one of them was wildly over the other, and also wildly over what I had budgeted for, unfortunately. But in terms of their methodologies, they're relatively similar. They're both reputable organizations, so it seemed like kind of a no-brainer to go with the least cost option. And we've also worked with MRI in the past and have had good results. So that's, I think it may be self-explanatory given the situation that we're in right now from a economic standpoint, the upward pressure on wages, and so we're really trying. Unfortunately, it's ending up that this is probably a little bit behind the eight ball, in that these things are already happening. We're already seeing upward pressure on wages. It's already having an impact on not just us and our ability to find people, but it's having an impact on everyone. So what we're hoping to do is not only make sure that we have, salary parity for people in the economy, but also that we're, well, that's really it. We're hoping to gain salary parity and also have an objective viewpoint so that we can support our position when we come back to you and say, hey, this is what we find. We really think we need to raise, salaries or lower them, but I don't think that's the case given what we've been looking at this already. So.
Any questions? Yeah.
How long will this survey take? I mean, July is coming up, August is starting the 23, 24 year budget. Would this be in time for that?
Yes, it will. The whole idea was that I would get this into you so that we could have this passed by tonight and get started at the new fiscal year. And I believe it's probably 2 months and they'll be done. So maybe a little over that, but we should have this ready for inclusion in the new budget.
Okay.
So it was by design.
By luck.
For once.
Any other questions? I just have one, and that's because there was such a large gap between MRI and PayPoint. Is there something that we won't be getting with the MRI?
That's a really good question, and I wish you hadn't asked it. No, it's yes, there is. It is a slightly different approach that the other company would take. Also, they're one of them's a PhD in applied mathematics, and he would be looking at this from kind of I think more of an actuarial standpoint than probably MRI is going to do. They also come with their own not methodology, but they've created their own set of tools that they use for this. So they've gone to great lengths to kind of develop their consulting model specifically for this purpose. So there's compensation that has to make up for all of that effort is essentially what I think is the reason for the change, the difference. So I could be wrong, but that's, to me, having worked, and they're also out of the Beltway, and having worked in the Beltway, actually they're really cheap when you think about it. But
And you're confident that MRI is going to give us what we need?
yes, I am. But we're going to have an influence on their process right from the very beginning, because we'll be meeting with them to kick off the project, and I'm going to ask that they are looking at certain things just to make absolutely certain that they are. An example of that is what the governor just mentioned recently about we're competing for people not just with other governments. We're competing for people like truck drivers and so on with industry. And it's kind of high time that we paid attention to that as we go forward. So, we're not in a bubble. So.
Right. Seeing No other questions or comments? If you could call the roll, please.
Counselor Brayback?
Aye.
Counselor Lamatina?
Aye.
Counselor White?
Aye.
Counselor Gladstone?
Aye.
Counselor Ward?
Aye.
Counselor Conlon?
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And then we have two resolutions in the first reading. And the first is Resolution 2021-2022-37 relating to sustainable energy goals for the town of Newmarket. Whereas the town of Newmarket acknowledges the existential threat that climate change poses to the diversity of all life on our planet, and whereas the town of Newmarket understands that it is imperative to take immediate, bold, and systemic action to combat climate change, and whereas the town of Newmarket is aware of a movement of municipalities that have committed to transitioning to 100% renewable energy, as well as the many technological options that have become available for reducing its carbon footprint, but has yet to take the necessary step of formulating a comprehensive plan to that end. And now therefore be it resolved by Newmarket Town Council that the town of Newmarket shall commit to achieving 100% reliance on renewable and carbon neutral sources of electricity by the year 2030, and 100% reliance on renewable and carbon neutral sources of fuel for heating and transportation by the year 2050. Further be it resolved that the commitment applies to all town facilities and to the town's leadership in initiatives designed to transition all businesses, institutions, and residences within the town's boundaries to 100% renewable and carbon neutral energy. Further be it resolved that the town of Newmarket shall, with the advice of the Town Environment and Energy Committee and any other resources it deems necessary, formulate a comprehensive plan determining the best methods and timetables to maximize energy efficiency and transition to alternative energy sources in order to achieve this goal. First reading June 15th, 2022. And the next resolution is, Resolution 2021-2022-36, resolution appropriating $7,450 from the Library Capital Reserve Fund for roof repairs at the Newmarket Public Library. Whereas Article 16 of the 1989 municipal election established a capital reserve fund pursuant to RSA Chapter 35 for the future expansion and related renovations to the Newmarket Public Library. And whereas the deterioration to the slate shingles and roof flashing has resulted in leaks causing damage to the building's interior, and whereas the trustees of the Newmarket Public Library are proposing that the council consider authorizing funds for the repair of the slate roof, whereas the Library Capital Reserve Fund has a balance of $108,112.81 as of July 31st, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved by the Newmarket Town Council. The Newmarket Town Council does hereby approve the expenditure of not more than $7,450 from the Library Capital Reserve Fund for the repair of the slate roof. First reading June 15th, 2022. And next is correspondence to the Town Council, and there is one letter as we asked the town manager at our last meeting. He reached out to Mr. Carmichael, who's president of the Newmarket Historical Society, to invite him to a workshop session which will be held on July 20th. And that was in our packets. And then any closing comments by town councilors? I am seeing none.
Seal the minutes.
Oh, thank you. So I would accept a motion to seal the minutes from our non-public session.
I'll make a motion to seal the minutes from our non-public session.
Thank you.
Second.
Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, if you could call the roll.
Counselor Brayback?
Aye.
Counselor Lamatina?
Aye.
Counselor White?
Aye.
Counselor
Aye.
Counselor Ward?
Aye.
Counselor Conlon?
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you for that reminder. And seeing no other comments, I will just say our next meeting is July 20th, so we have a whole month away from each other. I hope everyone enjoys the 4th of July and summer plans and everything that summer has to offer until we meet again on the 20th, and we will have this 6 o'clock session on that. So that's the workshop prior to our meeting. And with that, I will consider us adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.